Welcome to hashtag This Is Me, Stories of Living Heart First, a listening series by ARC, a Rainbow Collective. Here we hold space for the tender, strange, and powerful ways people live creatively, love freely, and move through the world with heart first. In this noisy world, we are tuning into something deeper, who we are beneath the performance, the product, the labels. Today, I'm joined by Svabhu.
Hey.
Okay, how would you introduce yourself without mentioning your job or your role?
Oh, I think that would be easy. I think I'm just somebody who is very curious about the world around me, particularly like how the natural world works. And I think what really brings me joy is just seeing all the little interconnections that connect me to that world. I really truly feel that I am a little ant in this big universe and I have so much to do, so much to collect, so much to create, so much to make. And I'm just like kind of, going through that little web. Yeah.
What feels like home to you right now in your body, your life, and your art?
Wow, this is actually a really interesting question because, home is something that I think we all are in search of for a very long time. And it's been a really long journey for me, particularly coming from, you know, uh, a generation that comes from the partition. So that's the first displacement. Then I come from a home from which I was displaced. My family went through a turbulent partition of its own, So then there was that idea of where I was born. I was uprooted from that place. Then I was figuring out this body that I was inhabiting, which was a huge struggle because I never felt I was in the right body for the longest time when I was really, really young. And I was always looking for, new discoveries to appear and they were not appearing. So it was a big, chaotic little journey for 30, 35 years. But I think in the last 2 to 3 years, it's been layers of many things. It's one becoming at peace with the body that one inhabits. Because there were always these desires of what the body could have been, what the body should have been, and finally, sort of transcended that. And finally, I've just found like there is this soul in me that I've made peace with, and I've sort of become friends with, and it's rooted me to this idea of time. Where everything is so fragile and uh, so less in the consequences of larger things.
Yeah.
That home has really become, in the first way, like the body that I inhabit. I've built this trust with this body. So wherever I go, I realize I've started building home because a lot of my worlds are very relational. So like where I live right now, Bati is a part of my home because of all the relationships that are with this body, with this soul.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, oh my God, that I actually have home in many places, like in all these places where I go, I think I really do make myself very present to the place. Like I think the world is too big and our time is too small. So I think wherever I am, I just try and be present where I am, and in that process, it becomes home. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
but it's been an interesting way of finding peace today in that. Like I do feel at peace with it.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of feeling in oneself after a long journey.
What's one memory or moment
Mm.
that shaped the way you see the world today?
Oh my God. There are many actually. I really, I think life for me has been very rude and kind, I would say, because I think I've really absorbed experiences that have been extremely varying. So, for example, the school where I grew up was a school which was very violent, very, very, very homophobic, very like gender phobic. I would say, like it was just like violence straight up. So that was a learning that brought me to the reality of what the world is. My parents' separation and the larger social understandings of patriarchy, of gender, of class, of how these things function. When my mom decided to walk out of the house after a lot of like turbulence and decided to pursue a path and of like of what she believed in was that she wanted to be an artist and this was time to do it. But when you step out in the world, you realize how social fabrics, how patriarchy, how gender roles, how all these things work. All these learnings were very, very crucial for me. I think it happened very, very, very early at the age of 11, 12. I think that was the biggest gift in so many ways that shaped my idea of like, okay, how do social structures around me work and how do you navigate these things? And yes, at that time, you build armor to survive, and it's been a process to shed the armor. But I'm very grateful for all those experiences today because I don't think I would have understood the world in ways that I do with empathy today.
Yeah.
Because I think that is something I didn't lose in the process, and that to me is a gift. And then there have just been, I think, I'm such a sucker for life in that sense that I always find myself in places and communities so often. Like every year, I'm in some place or the other, which is filling my soul up. So I would say
Yeah.
very recently, what shaped my life, because I think that's the best way to navigate this. I was in the Paki Tiger Reserve with Canopy Collective and Paki Dem Partnerships, and we were working with the Mahouts and the captive elephants that work with the forest department,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at just the larger world that both the elephant and the mahout occupy in this world. And
Yeah.
I think that just being open to experiences like this, it really just opens the world up for you, because you realize that how we're all living so many micro universes, and
Yeah.
I think I'm constantly like hopping between these micro universes to build the worlds that I do within the work that I do. And I feel just so grateful. So it's so hard to pinpoint to one because some of them have been very scarring experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I am very susceptible. Or I don't know if that's the word, but I put myself in those places very often because it's like when I was in the Atacama working with my team with the Lawayaka residency, and the Likanantai people. They also believe that if you don't study the darkness,
Mm.
how would you move to the light and understand the value of the light?
Yeah.
So I think the rigor to be very young and to be exposed to how violent and how cruel the world can be
Yeah.
sort of made me like, I don't know if that's a trauma response or whatever the language around it is, but it made me very um open to be able to enter these spaces and
Mm.
also understand them through like how do human frameworks work,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then tying them with how do behaviors end up shaping the world that we create, from spaces that we create, from like buildings that we build, from like art that we create.
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
constantly shaping ideas. So yeah, there's just like this gamut of experiences that I hold very dear to my life. And that's also where this idea of home connects, because
Mm. Mm.
when you enter such personal spaces where there is pain, where there's sorrow, you also have accountability to these lives. You're not just arriving there and being like, okay, I'm witnessing this. But my work has thankfully allowed me to build these relationships over years, and it's also led to transformation in the kind of practice that I've created.
Yeah.
So and then transformations and metamorphoses are all part of this little khichdi that's being like brewed in this pot, I think. Yeah.
What are you learning to listen to right now?
Ooh, this is a very interesting question. So I think for the longest time, one is trained to listen to the mind. Very often it's about, oh, listen to the mind and the body will respond. And I over time realize that my mind is the chaotic space and my
Mm.
body always has the answers. And
Yeah.
this is also my route to also like unlearning the own, like how you can be like transphobic, homophobic to yourself
Yeah.
first. That, oh,
Mm-hmm.
the violence is first like so self-driven. So as a child, I've been building this narrative where I realized that, oh my God, like, when I experience touch, when I experience joy, when I experience any kind of emotion, the first place where I do feel it is in my body. And
Mm.
then the mind goes like, oh, but that's right.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
This means
Yeah.
this. And then there's this larger thing that comes up that kind of was making me tight, and over the years, I've really, and I think it's still something I'm continuously working on, because it's
Mm.
like this intuitive knowledge that I think we just got disconnected from so deeply.
Yes.
And I think I've come into a lot of its power today, but I know it's still so much to harness in it, to be able to free like what really is that when both the body and the mind can dance together versus,
Yeah.
fight for power. And that is a language that I think I'm applying not just to how I inhabit space, but also like how does that develop practice? How does that develop how you move on the street? How and I constantly test it, like
Mm-hmm.
because there are these things, when you go like, oh, you shouldn't say this to someone, you shouldn't behave as someone, and then you go like, but it's how you do it, and then when you put it out in the universe and you receive it back, it also creates this moment of just beauty and safety, which is so powerful that it's a language I'm truly, truly like committed, I think, deeply to learning and just on that path. So I think, yeah, definitely listening to the body and making the mind unlearn the all the vocabulary that is not in sync with what the body is trying to say.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think, yeah.
yeah. Is there a sound, silence, or a song that has stayed with you lately?
Oh yeah, there are quite a few. Though there's one thing that I do return to a lot, which is like there's this frequency. I always forget the number. I think it's a 639. It's a love frequency. And very often, because with the kind of work that I do, and some days, like I was just talking about, get really overwhelming.
Mm.
That there's this beautiful track which is like this 8-hour frequency, and I think it just like aligns your heart chakra really well, and it's really beautiful what it does to a space. So particularly like when I'm working on long hours, because when I'm working with lyrics, when I'm working with things, and it always puts you into a place,
Mm.
and then that impacts what you're doing. But I've been playing with just listening to like more silent sounds and like frequencies,
Mm.
and using them while also trying to develop works. And there's some magic there. There's some real like calm that ends up coming, and more focus on again taming the mind, and then using the body to
Yeah,
create
yeah.
from that tamed mind. Uh, that's been interesting. Yeah.
How do you know when it's time to pause or to express?
I think like I truly feel like a buffalo sometimes. Like, how when you look at a buffalo, like a water buffalo, they or even a snake, these two creatures are something I very often think of myself as, because rest is such an integral part of
Mm.
their existence, and it's very calculated attack. So for me, like I don't think I've ever felt the rush of time. That's something that I think just was, I think maybe comes from the way I saw my mom also looking at process and practice. When you're really young, and uh, there's not that idea of like you have to get something, you have
Mm.
to do something. I think that's
Mm.
very crucial in the world that we live in today, because everything is so time driven. When is it deliverable? When is this? When is that? And for me, like life has to be lived, and from there, whatever is created is created. To me, that's the core. So I've actually never really struggled a lot with this pause and rest, and when to act, particularly in my personal practice. Because I think for me, my work that I develop comes from my experiences. So whatever
Mm.
I birth has actually come from experiences. So that's such a part of the process in
Yeah.
itself, that for me, that I definitely give that time to, okay, this time I have to be out learning, reading, working with communities. And from there I come back, then I go like, okay, these are the connections, time to birth something. So I've not struggled with the space there. I think the place where I have struggled with pause and rest is sometimes, particularly with the kind of work that we do with activism, with self organizing, with the work we do at Armchair Mole, because um, there's sometimes that well of pain is so deep that you don't know when to stop.
Mm.
And some days you just realize that, oh my god, I've burnt myself out. So over years I've just like realized, and thankfully with the way the campaign's also structured, rest is a very core part of it. And we say that, when you step out. So it's
Yeah.
not like I'm around, then you step out to actually cut off to be able to rest. So I think also having the privilege of communities that understand that structure has
Mm-hmm.
also been a gift. So
Yeah.
where it's never really been like a problem or a thing that I've struggled with to go like, okay, let's step back.
Mm.
Because I think then in Punjabi, there's that saying, it's a lambi race ka ghoda.
Mm.
My nana used to say that you always put on your blinders,
Yeah.
because there's too much happening in the world. Once I'm very focused on why I'm here. Like, and I know it's not something, I'm not looking for deliverables or like outcomes, like this classic corporate language that come into our daily lives for regular things also. And I think you just have to, like, I know I'm here to walk for a long time, so I can't like burn myself out. And actually, as I'm talking, I think maybe one of the things about this is also the practice of like being somebody who's hiked a lot, who does a lot of outdoorsy stuff, who's like, very like, I go for long treks, I go for long trips. So you know that when you overdo it, you die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
body will just fall. And I think
Yeah.
I didn't ever think of it, but I think that practice comes from that. It's like this mimicry, like almost that, they don't know, that if you overdo this point, you will fall. And that's not really been a struggle.
How does your queerness or your way of being different show up in how you live and create?
Wow, this would be an interesting question to ask the other. But I do think that for myself, this is, I don't think I have said, but I do think it's my superpower, I treat it as my superpower because I feel like what is queerness? Queerness for me is like this, it's like this mega superpower being able to recreate and unlearn. It's like this card, it's a trump card that I've been born with innately,
Yeah.
which is like trump the system, like, like recreate the system, reimagine the system. And that is a constant dance of, like I said, how you inhabit a home, how you inhabit a social structure, how you inhabit a workspace, how you inhabit this body. And, it took a long time to arrive at this power. It's
Yeah.
not like one is just born with it and you're like, you have gone through a lot of struggles, scars, pain, every kind of like different kind of violence as well that,
Yeah.
and then I think I was just able to really like transform it. And it's all happened in the last 2 years where I've made it like, I really sometimes feel like nothing can touch me now, and it's something that has also happened with love. I think one of the things that changed it for me was also finding that love in the world, which I thought I never would. And not just love with, say, a partner, with friendships, with certain familial relationships, with my neighborhood, with the kind of practice. So suddenly when you find these little anchors of love, the power can grow. You can't just like be like, okay, I love myself, and then go out into the world, and if you're constantly being bruised and beaten up, it's not going to work. But I think it is finding these anchors in the land, in the kind of work and it's been like baby steps. And when I have entered in my truest and my most honest self, I've also seen what that's done to the other. So like, there's this that saying, sharing is receiving.
Yeah.
And I think in sharing my queerness as myself, I've received so much that till I wasn't sharing my me as myself, I wasn't receiving anything. I felt depleted. I felt empty. I didn't even feel like myself. And I think that's really been something so beautiful to experience, because a large part of it is receiving, not just giving.
Yeah.
And that's made me feel like, oh my god, I need to do so much. And that's been like the larger rebuilding of whatever's around me that I'm trying to do through my practice, which has been amazing.
What's one moment of queer joy or creative freedom that you hold really close to yourself?
There've been so many. Queer joy and queer freedom.
Creative freedom.
Creative freedom. I think they are, for me, like, they really are part of both, because I truly believe, I don't know how to say this in the right words, but the first kind of artwork that is in my head, because when I began my practice, I was obsessed with cinema. Because for me, cinema was like the ultimate sensorial experience, where there was like every kind of practice coming into it. No, like there's audio, there's video, there's costume, there's space, there's light, there's words, there's music. It was just an ultimate creation, and it was a fantasy. It's also changing perceptions of how I see the world I live in. And I remember really young, because I was working a lot with video and creating narratives around cinema. Um, and the first thing I felt was that, oh my God, why the fantasy? I want the reality. And it became like this little twist that I still want to return to film, but I was like, I first want the first art form that you are building is your life.
Yeah.
Is really your life. So when they kind of merge and blend, it became like this, almost like this very this act of also putting in that effort of, like, how do I build this fantasy around me, because it was coming with this urge and desire to make, from my hands, from my words, from the way I inhabit this body. And I must say that, I really truly believe that in this intention of like creating this this illusion or this world, I've also received back from it. So there have also been these really surreal experiences that have made life. So I feel like life itself for me is that art, because there have been so many moments that when I think of, or when I share with people, 'cause I'm also a storyteller. I love telling my stories orally. And a lot of times I'm like, that was real. It did happen, and it seems like it is the fantasy,
Yeah.
but it's not. So I think I don't know if that answers your question, but I truly believe through the kind of experiences that I've tasted in this world, life in itself has now become that dance of queer joy, of creative freedom, of really feeling. And I think that's really coming into power, right? Into
Mm.
your self power,
Yeah.
or arriving at that moment of, yes, this can work. This can be manifested through the energies and honesty with which one is putting this energy out into the world.
Who are your people? The ones that remind you it's okay to be exactly who you are.
Oh my god. I think I have a lot of friendships, but there are few anchor points in my world. I think there so do I name them? How does it work? They're just like this how I work. So I would say, like, like, not to name, but there are few friendships that I've found in different parts of the
Mm.
world. And I think that's also what's been really interesting. That I'm also like, I've finally made peace with this. I do feel like a lone wolf at
Mm.
times, but a
Mm.
lone wolf can also belong to a pack.
Yeah.
And I think that has given me, because as a creative person, there's one thing that the one relationship is with your practice, and yet that needs time.
Yeah.
Relationships in your life need time, and now I've found people who understood the time that I need for myself,
Yeah.
and yet I can arrive back at these friendships, at these and they're the first and foremost really deep friendships, I think. And then they've become, like, amalgamations of lovers, of partners, of family.
Mm.
But and this is also with my familiar relationships, like even blood relationships. They've also figured out my rhythms
Mm.
of, like, oh, I can't be there for certain things and I can be there for certain things. And just having that around has freed me also to know that how much I can give back,
Yeah.
because there's also, like, this limited well of energy that you do have, with which, and relationships do take so much work and effort, right?
Yeah.
And I think I feel very grateful that with this circle that is there today, there is a lot of accountability, but there's also a lot of vulnerability, in the sense of, we all can sometimes meet our shadows,
Mm.
and there's also has to be a space to express the shadow, to release it. And that's a very scary space to find with someone, because it's not being misused.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's called a purge almost,
Yeah.
because if you keep it in your body, it kind of takes over you. But if you throw it out, you realize, oh my god, this is such an awful thing to hold. And to find that today, because most of my life, through school, through adulting, I was really very alone. I even this transition of my life, I really thought that I'm going to live alone and die alone, and that's really what the story is going to be.
Mm.
And just along the way, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've just had found people who've just really held me. And the first few years were very hard because I didn't know how to be in that.
Mm.
I just didn't know how to be in that. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know how to be in a social space. I didn't know how to be in a place where someone holds you to sleep, cooks for you, like, has something to share with you. Because, like I was that kid who would, like, when, the school bell would ring, and I would run to the bathroom and hide in the pot and eat my lunch there, because everything else outside was violent.
Mm.
Society was violent. My neighborhood was violent. So everything was just like lock, lock, lock. And to discover that in your late 20s, your body gets used to a certain way of touch, of holding, of,
Yeah.
of distance. And you also realize how quickly you unlearn. And you need people to help you unlearn that system. And I just feel really, really held by that thought today,
Mm.
to find truly a community that shows up, and not shows up in the everyday calls, that
Yeah.
shows up, like, when you're really, like, when you want to experience joy, when you want to experience love, when you want to experience food together. So it's not like there's that, it doesn't feel like it's pretentious,
Yeah.
and that to me is something so sacred, that it's a gift that I thought I'd never have.
Mm.
So I really hold it very dearly, like, and especially, like, in transitions, because it's really interesting. I'm at a point of transitions today, where my partner's just about to leave for his PhD, and of course it changes. Like, like, and I'm at a point where I'm looking at also different horizons and borders. And there was suddenly this moment where I, like, retreated back to, oh my god, am I going to go back to who I was, like, as a, the inner child just
Yeah.
awakens and gets like, oh no, I don't want anything to change. I never get this back. And then suddenly you take a moment and you realize that, oh, you're not going back.
Yeah.
You have transformed in this process. And now it's like, you trust that system, and then you go like, oh my God, like I suddenly have a garden already and that's blooming. It's that doesn't not just gonna die.
Yeah.
And so to experience that moment was so cathartic. I really felt like I grew up,
Yeah.
because there was that moment of saying bye to that little fearful, scared little kid that was living with me till I was like almost 29, 30, like, so it was, yeah, it's just been beautiful. So I think that's the beauty of the power we harness as people. No? I think we often forget
Yeah.
what we can do for each other. And to receive that is, I'm just like, okay, now we have to like circle of reciprocity. It has to move on, it has, the energy has to keep flowing.
What are you weaving right now, personally, creatively, and communally?
So I'm actually, it's an interesting question. I actually am at the cusp of something. I think till now I built something, and I'm the kind of a person who builds and smashes. So like I built something like, okay, break this now, start something new. And I really feel like, because I have over the last, and it's coming from the practice of the last 10 years of doing long-term place-based work in Goa, in the Atacama, a bit in the Aravallis. Very recently now, just laid roots a little bit in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, and had the extreme honor of working with some incredible people who are doing like work at the forefronts of ecology, community, indigenous narratives in the world that we inhabit today. And I just suddenly have been like over the last few months, actually, particularly after my trip to Assam and Arunachal Pradesh with Canopy Collective, I realized two things. That a, my work has been deeply relational. Like I didn't even realize that as a methodology. That, oh my God, this is how it is. Everything for me, like really, everything starts from first relationship building, and from there there's accountability. From there the works are born about what need and desire of spaces are. But I feel like with where the world is at and what is being put on the table, it's too less. And it's too less for me. And like it's brought in a lot of like anger. Like after, like, sometimes I wonder, like, even as we speak, like, and not just like nationally, internationally, globally, like we are going through so much. And yet there is this narrative of it could get worse. So that point of worse stops when, like, I think the level of I think, I don't know if it's capitalism or the way we can immune ourselves. And I think this is something I'm realizing about the human tendency, just looking at even COVID, which was so recent, how quickly we have forgotten what all happened, how structures failed us, how our governance failed us on so many levels, how communities have failed us, how so many things have happened. Then you look at what's happening in Palestine right now. You look at what's happening nationally in terms of politics. You look at what's happening to ecology. You look at what's happening to indigenous communities across this land. And I'm like, how much worse does it get? And I'm literally in the middle of like this moment where I'm like, there are desires and hopes and dreams that one has, that one thinks are needed in the world. And then there is this moment of realizing that that's not enough.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be a deeper imagining, first of all. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with my practice now, where I'm working with different communities, students, to look at what is the imagination of the future that's not in response to crisis. Because then we are just responding, it's really just fixing the system, versus us looking at how do you rebuild the system. And I think every player has a part. So it's not like the one fighting the system, or I truly believe everybody has like, little plugs. But I realized, because I've also been feeling this sense of strength and power in my body, and also like anger, the well of anger, that I feel like I can right now look at what is the reimagination of not just of social structures, of queer structures, of home, of really what is our accountability to land, to people, and not in response to how we have imagined everything till now. And really, I wish we can, as a collective conscious, start looking at this, because in the end, it's going to abolish. And this is why I love particularly what the trans and non-binary community bring to the world, because it abolishes every idea of what you exist or what exists. The first imagination, right, of of gender, of like of society. Suddenly people are going malfunctioning in their brains, going like, oh my god, but then what? And that to me is like one of the first seeds of power, because you're literally creating another idea of imagination and reality, which could be based on so many ideas of how one sees thyself, you know? And how does then that kind of thought process look at our relationship to our land, our relationship to how we eat, our relationship to like how larger governance works, how
Mm.
accountability works? And there's so much to do in it, and I'm feeling so some days I'm a bit like, okay, what are the beginning points? So I'm starting baby steps with now holding spaces of facilitation, of mentorship, of education, of unlearning, where I'm working with smaller communities who have already been doing work, a
Mm.
lot of on ground work, and also creating a space for them to reimagine their own practice without the crisis.
Mm.
And what does really their utopia look like? Because really I feel like the world, I've had the deep privilege of working and spending time with people in communities who are doing work because of which the world is held today,
Mm.
and it's completely in the unknown.
Yeah.
They're not on your news channels, they're not on your feeds, they're not on your word of mouth, on your top 30s, top 10s, like they're literally on ground. They're working with some of the most some of the most incredible projects that they have made from bare minimum.
Mm.
You look at grant raising, fund proposals, and you see people with what they can do with bare minimum. And I think that is the place where I'm so interested to learn from.
Mm.
Also, then how do you like look at the kind of skill sets, the kind of like what really human power can do in even in this scarcity, even in this level of suppression,
Yeah.
and how do we connect these dots to look at what can the future really look like? And that's really where I'm starting from scratch now, and it's really giving me a lot of strength, because often this comes no like when larger, I think we've all, because we're so distracted by, okay, the world's gotten too depressed, okay, I'm just gonna go out do something else, and then we immune ourselves. We're immuning ourselves so much that we've failed an entire generation of every age
Yeah.
right now. That just doesn't cut it for me. So I'm like, okay, need to like restructure, reorganize, and rebuild. And that's where all the forces are getting into weaving. And because it's also so relationship based, I don't feel alone.
Mm.
Again, coming back to that. So it's not me doing this.
Yeah.
I like it's already happening.
Yeah.
So that level of isolation is not there. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just ship is already at sea. Like, how can I propel it? What can I do? What can
Mm.
I be the one sailing the wind? Can I be the one like shifting the water? Like, so the boats are out already. So I think more people need to get on the boats, because often we think that we are taking the boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boats are already at sea. They're already like out there. You just gotta hop on, and it really has. I think that is what makes me feel really rich today. That because it's not in isolation or an illusion, I think that's the boat where I'm headed to.
What's something you have unlearned that's helped you live more freely?
Oh my God. It's actually something very interesting recently. There are many unlearnings, but this is one of the most recent ones because um, I grew up with narratives, around social narratives of, I always felt like it's like I believed in love and doing loving things for the other. It was
Mm.
something that I always felt like I had this power in me. And I often feel like my chest swell up, sometimes when I'm at the river, blah, blah, blah. But there was always this notion of karma
Mm.
attached to it. And I realized that I have completely abolished this like ridiculous narrative. And it came because of the way the world is working.
Yeah.
Like, I think karma today, and often I see people use it, I think it's just like a narrative for justified violence. And it sickens me how often we use this word. And I was actually talking to Farai, and like it was this very interesting question, because death to me is like an ultimate experience. It's going to happen to all of us, and I often question what is it? Because I feel like I have this dialogue with the mysterious, and like all the purpose of life or is based on this idea that it is a limited time period. So like, is it? So how do you want to spend this time on this planet? And I had many like because I read a lot. I work with different healers, shamans, and indigenous communities that have many narratives around what death is, and it was a very exciting subject to me. And was speaking to Farah and I asked him that, what do you think happens after that? Like, what is your understanding of it? And there's no right or wrong. I just love engaging in these conversations. And he was like, oh, it's nothing. I don't think there's anything larger. You die, and it's the end of it. And I found that thought so freeing. Like, because, from somebody who built in so much purpose, and it's not like I let go of that, but there is so much that we end up creating of how we live in this world based on so many of these narratives of what life should be. And I was like, wow, that's such a freeing thought where you don't give it this larger importance. He was like, you basically return to the earth. You're just like how, and it's so interesting how scientific minds, rational minds also work in those ways. Where you look at like how ecosystems, like, a plant decays and you go back into the system, the mycelium network, and you've decomposed. And I was like, wow, that's so freeing. And in many ways, it freed my idea of like how I value this experience in between. Because it's not like what I was doing changed, but very often these narratives can sometimes burden you. They definitely did burden me in many ways, because I was like, what is it? What is the purpose? Do you do good? Do you get good? La, 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 like there's all this, it suddenly just went, and it was like, life has to be lived truly in the most honest way. How you're feeling in your body and your heart. Be kind, be like generous in today's time, particularly when the world is wounded. So it suddenly brings you to the present. You're not looking at it from like all these imaginations. And I'm sure this could evolve and change even in my own narrative, but in my current space, it really just freed me to be like, okay, where is the present space of human timeline at, and how do I respond to that? And this is the thought that brought me to this, which was so freeing that I loved it. I just loved it because I think it just shot me out of all my imaginations that could be an imagination too, And I'm a storyteller. I love listening to stories. So there are all these rich stories, and this was so simplistic that it trumped me. It just trumped me so hard that I was like, wow, I would love to engage with this idea as well, and re-question and rethink, how does that impact behavior? How does that impact how one exists in this timeline?
Finish this sentence. This is me and I ...
This is me and I wish to go back to the mycelium network. I truly do. Like, it's been actually one of my friends was talking to me about this recently, and what I mean by that is that I think that we give human life sometimes too much importance, and I think there's something so much larger that we are a part of. And I think sometimes having all these senses is actually what kind of messed it up, because we've gotten so lost in communication and interpreting what these five senses do for us that the larger ability of what we could do is completely gotten eliminated. And I think that sometimes I feel like I signed up for the wrong planet. I was just like, what the hell happened? Like, this is not what it was supposed to be. Like, I think I'm in the wrong body. I'm on the wrong planet. Like, okay, let's quickly wrap this job up and go to the right one. And I think like that's going to be the passage to it. So
thank you, Svabhu, for letting us into your world, your heart, so and your creative rhythm. Do you want to just tell everybody what you do professionally?
Oh my God. No, I think that's okay. This, I hope I get to, I think now I'm reaching this point in this world where I would just call myself like a problem solver and an idea maker. And I hope we cross paths.
Yes.
To let's meet in like the place where we can actually do things. And I would love that.
To everyone tuning in, thank you for listening, feeling, and being here. Keep creating, keep becoming, and always live heart first. See you next time on #ThisIsMe.
This is me. Thanks, Rujan. This was so fun.